name is Emily Ross, and yeah, I'm a student here at FUA currently.
Studying?
Yeah, studying. I'm getting my master's degree in organizational management and international hospitality. So a lot about the global business environment, hospitality environment,
Great.
all intersections.
Excellent. So you're actually in many ways the first person to talk to about this because you've been living in Florence for a number of years, right? So what if someone were to say, okay, Florence is subject to experiencing this crisis of overtourism, as someone suggested an idea of a sustainable tourism model. What could that look like?
I think it's hard because so much has already been done here. I mean, I think currently Florence is trying to keep their own identity and everything as much as possible. It's so hard to think about. I feel like the main thing here are like tours, and tours are, they might not be changing anything physically, but they change kind of the ecosystem and the environment for people here.
Okay, so I want to kind of spring off on that. So with Florence being a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is overtourism actually degrading that? How is it impacting the preservation of Florence as a UNESCO World Heritage Site?
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it's degrading it. It's still Florence. It's still extremely authentic and an amazing place to go. But I feel like over time, every year, it caters itself towards tourists, and by doing that, whether they might just look like small nuances or small actions that don't seem that big, they're taking a step away from that heritage and that history and that authenticity to step towards the audience, like the target audience that people are coming right now. And I think, like I said, they're not making any physical changes, but the ecosystem, and some physical changes like stores and businesses and stuff, it is kind of taking away from that because more is being introduced that's not part of Florence's
like hamburgers,
history.
And tacos.
Yeah, that's not. And people come here and they love it, and it's cool, and students come here and they love it, but it's not Florence at all. Or having like a huge H&M in the middle of the piazza by the Duomo, or huge American fashion stores or stuff like that. It's by introducing so many of those factors, you can't help but take away from what was here.
Right. So, as somebody who's lived here, what's it like? How have you experienced the overtourism problem as somebody who's not a tourist, who's actually now is a resident?
Yeah, a lot. It's a huge difference. When I was here in 2020, I feel like it was a lot more authentic of an experience.
Really?
And you'd walk around and it would be a lot, not mainly, because of course there were always some tourists, but there would be a lot of locals, there would be a lot of, you were adapting or trying to adapt to the local Florentine culture.
Right.
And now it's kind of, people come here and you're not expected to. You don't speak Italian, you don't know anything about it, there's still something for you. There's still everything around here. It's kind of forcing Italy to adapt a bit. But then
right, okay.
You can just tell, the crowds are insane. I will not come here in the summer because you can barely walk anywhere. And it's, for me, the Duomo is on my way to classes or something. It's a route that I take daily. It's beautiful. I enjoy it. Now you walk and I could barely get through. It's just the lines are wrapping around the Duomo. The restaurants I used to go to are now, not all of them, but some of them are lines out the door. Prices have increased like crazy. There's one restaurant I heard of, and now it's booked for like weeks in advance, and people book reservations and still can't get in, and because I don't think really any of them are locals anymore. It's these things blow up. It's harder to get access and like move around freely and just act as a normal resident because there's so much interfering in terms of people.
Do you think
being
social
here
media has had that influence of how this has changed?
Yeah, for sure. I think people have always wanted to travel here. People have always been coming here, but then you put it online and people, romanticize it as well. I mean, Florence is beautiful. It's not like it's not. It's not like it's not, and then social media is making it to be. But people are posting videos walking around. They're posting videos eating this food and drinking every single day and all these like things. And people are seeing that and they're like, oh my God, I want to go. And where should I go? And then people are doing recommendations. And then all of a sudden, one of those recommendations videos blows up and those places are inaccessible.
Right. And not to mention, even the size of the places physically can't handle that capacity.
Yeah.
We were walking over here, we passed Vivoli, Gelato, and the
Do you know
line,
about them? The oldest gelato?
oldest
Yeah.
gelateria in Firenze. The line was ridiculous. So if you're just a regular
Yeah.
Florentine who wants to get some gelato,
Exactly.
you have to wait for all of these people,
Yeah.
90% of which aren't from Florence, aren't even Italian.
Yeah.
And you have to then wait. And the store itself, I mean, Vivoli is tiny inside. So the stores physically are not able to accommodate so many people.
Florence isn't meant for it.
No.
It's not. I mean, the streets alone, you see the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Have you like tried to get anywhere on the sidewalks? It's like
I was thinking
people
about that
trying
on
to
our
line
way
up.
back to the flat today. I was like, these sidewalks are not.
You become a professional like street. You just like maneuver between the cars
Yes.
and the bikes and everything. And like, for example, the one sandwich place Pino's I was saying. To be fair, I didn't know about them back in 2020, but I liked them before they got really famous through TikTok. And I would go, and it's literally the same guy that just makes sandwiches. Same crew, great place, tiny. You walk in, it's like a tiny little door frame. There's a counter, and there's a little sidebar up against the wall with like 3 stools.
That's it.
Now, people are lining up out there. They're lining down the street on the sidewalk, and then you can't walk around them. And
Right.
now I don't go there as much because now it's a huge. That's what I'm saying. Like it kind of makes it inaccessible to just people that just want to go around and live that day-to-day life.
Right. So, what would, if someone said, what would you say is the most effective way to encourage tourists to kind of spread out? Go away. Don't stay. Go. Rather than just visiting the main tourist hotspots. How do you think we can get people to get out of that city center area? Because it is such a small
Yeah.
area. I mean, you think of a piazza like this, which is relatively small,
Yeah.
and all the people. But then you also, I think of like the main square in Krakow, Poland, which is massive, largest in continental Europe. So it doesn't feel as claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Here, it can feel very, very claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And I had to tell students, the biggest, for their own safety, the biggest thing when you're walking through Florence is you must pay attention because the cars are crazy,
Yeah.
and you have to maneuver and walk so cautiously and carefully.
Yeah.
You also have to be careful not to trip on a cobblestone and break your ankle.
I have fallen so many times.
That it's funny.
It's so busy here, and I love Florence. It's not like any of this will make me stop loving it, but then it becomes, I think when I travel, I want it to sound cliche because obviously I'm not a local wherever I travel,
Right.
but I try in my mind to live as much like a local as possible.
We do the
To
same
like, to go to the places that maybe aren't the number one Yelp recommendation, and to like ask people for recommendations and try to at least learn like, hi, how are you, basic in the language.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, and I try even like staying somewhere with more history or finding things to do that aren't what every single other person's doing. And I feel like while I love Florence, it just becomes harder to do that when you have to maneuver around these audiences, because you can't just go about your life. It's like a constant reminder of everything.
Right, which actually leads me to my next thing I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
So, since 2020 to 2024, how is or do you believe that over-tourism has resulted in a change to the type of tourist tourism? Like what type of people do you think come and want to and want to visit here? Is it just people who are hearing about content and things blowing up on social media? Is it Americans? What changes, if any, have you noticed in the type of tourist who comes here?
Yeah, I think, of course there is that market that we talked about with people on social media and content. Typically, a lot of people in their 20s and stuff like that. I know even like our study abroad program is blowing up. Like it's become a lot more robust and bigger than it was, with people wanting to come to Florence, like Americans wanting to come to Florence in our age range. I also think, I see a lot of people now who are maybe 50s and 60s doing a lot of like the European river cruises and the different like going on kind of closer to that retirement. I've seen a lot of people, start to retire, go back from their jobs part-time, and even people I've known personally have been like, well, now we're going to go to Italy and we're going to do all this traveling, because they didn't do it. I think they didn't do it when they were younger, and now they're watching all the younger generations do it. And they want to start to do it. And then, of course, I've noticed a lot of Americans. I just went to the Christmas market now, and I was ordering something. All the other people looking at the booth were speaking English to the vendors. And it's a humble reminder. And then a lot of people from like China, Thailand, Korea.
Thailand.
Yeah, I have met some people from Thailand. A lot of tours. I feel like I mainly see American tours, and then tours geared towards Asian countries. And
really?
Speaking of, yeah.
What's the difference, do you think?
What do you mean?
So if you see tours guided towards American tourists,
yeah.
and then tours guided towards Asians, what do you think are the differences in those types of tours? Do you think they're highlighting different things, or do you think they're going about how they tour differently because of Asians, especially because Asians tend to be very, very travel-minded, whereas Americans are not as travel-minded internationally. They're more of a domestic. They are more of a domestic society when it comes to travel.
I agree. It's hard. It was hard to take a step back at first because I've always traveled. So then thinking about how so many people don't. But I feel like to that point with American tours, they see the big names like the Duomo, Santa Croce, the David, Ponte Vecchio, like some really big names, and then with some of the other tours for other countries and like tours geared towards Asian countries, I feel like they see a lot of the smaller things because maybe they have been here before, they've been in other countries because they're very travel minded, so they go like the markets or different restaurants or other landmarks in the area. And I feel like it varies. Of course, the language as well, and some of the explanations. They all have the little walkie-talkies with the earbuds.
Yes. Tour guide lives here, or is he coming over with them?
I obviously don't know because it's not like I've talked to them.
I feel like they come over with them.
I don't know. I think
like they've been here so many times that they can do the tour.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like they come with them.
I feel like a lot of them do too, because
Right.
I feel like a lot of them do too, or they have like planned regular trips here,
Right.
where they'll come and they'll do maybe like a season of tours for like the busiest seasons here.
Yeah.
Right.
I will say, like, I don't see a lot of Asian people here that I don't know, but that I feel like are locals, that like I either
Right.
see going to little grocery stores when I go, or like little local areas to where I'm not sure. It almost seems like I see a lot of people like that during the tours.
Right.
And not much otherwise. So
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
only
maybe they do come here like for those direct.
I think that also I've only seen a handful of Asians who I might suspect live here, and they've primarily been from Southeast Asia, India, or even the Middle East.
Yeah, I don't do it. Thank you.
So that which is also really interesting how the populations move throughout some of these different European cities. For example, Krakow, Poland, has a massive Indian population. So big.
The best Indian of my
You
life.
just took the words out of my mouth. So big.
Seriously.
The population
Really?
is so big and it's so entrenched in Krakow that the Indian food is hands down the best. The only thing I would probably get better Indian food is
Yeah.
if I'm in New Delhi.
Wow. I feel like I don't see as many Indian people here.
No.
I really don't.
No. Question.
Yeah.
Because you're here, like we've only come like the last week of November or the
Yeah,
first week
yeah,
of
like
December when they have
timing.
the conference.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, and I know during the summer there's more of a spike.
Mm-hmm.
Is it more of a spike in Americans coming in the summer? And is it more of like Asians are just coming all throughout the year? Because every time we come here, yes, we see a lot of Americans, but it's usually like
lot
the
of
parents
Asians, yeah.
visiting
Yeah.
the students here.
Yeah. I feel like, honestly, I don't see as much of a spike in the American tours, as I feel like it's pretty consistent. Like there's always American tours, but I feel like I almost see the same number and the same regularity around the year. Maybe not over like December when it's absolutely freezing. I feel like I see more Asian tours, like different highs and lows in certain seasons, which also lending to your point, like maybe it is some type of like coming here for the tours, like this is their job, they do tours in Florence
Right.
or something like that. I'm
What's
not
interesting
sure.
is I haven't seen really any American tour groups.
I think
Yeah.
I've seen one.
You've seen one?
I
In the
haven't
5
seen
years
as
we've come, and
many.
it was this trip.
Really?
Yeah.
I've
That's what
seen Asian, I've seen Ukrainian, I've seen Spanish. I haven't seen any Americans, which I think is actually very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think like
That may not be a thing.
as a thing, like globally. I don't think Americans really do tours
Tour groups.
unless it's like a specific like how Maddie does like she did like the hiking tour and they were hiking all day every day.
Right.
doing
Or unless you're
specific-
going through like an organized program like Rick Steves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Rick Steves does his tours, and you can actually, you know who Rick Steves is, right?
Yeah.
You can sign up for his tours and go along with his certified tour
Okay.
guides who he trains.
Yeah.
And and he almost exclusively does Europe, right? I think he
Yeah.
almost exclusively does Europe. So he'll bring tours over. But again, what's also interesting is his tours aren't cheap either.
Okay.
So that
Yeah.
that's another piece of it as when it comes to the types of people who are coming
Yeah.
over.
I don't see as many either.
What's
I feel
also-
like there's a lot of cruises, of course.
Of course.
And there's a lot of people booking excursions or booking little like the Duomo at this time, like entries.
Yeah.
Things like that. I have witnessed, especially in New Zealand, where
Really?
where my family is from, not nearly as bad like this.
But
But a lot of people are starting
do you
to.
feel like it's so bad because Florence is so small?
I think so. I think
like,
concentration wise.
Like Paris is ginormous. So you're not going to
by
see
the
that.
numbers. Like if you ratio it, I feel like there are definitely other cities that are on the same level as Florence.
Right.
But like, for example, New Zealand, I mean, a lot of people are starting to come over. A lot of people are starting to buy properties and run businesses there.
Right.
And
Yeah, New Zealand has kind of become like the next hot thing, right?
the Asian market is
Really? For
they're
New
buying
Zealand?
a lot of houses and a lot of properties and renting them out, similar to what they're doing here. But New Zealand is very still big and mountainous, and you drive everywhere. Like, it is very
You're
spread
not going to
out.
feel the impact like you will here.
You're not walking everywhere, past everything, past everyone, to where you are here. So I feel like I do feel like New Zealand, you know, is not as bad, but maybe it's inching towards it.
Yeah.
Here and like Venice are two just areas that I think also, because they're small, they're also by foot. So I also feel like that has a component. If you're driving, like you drive, first of all, it's a bigger area. Second of all, you're not forced to kind of walk through huge crowds and huge busy roads and sidewalks. And here in Venice are both, you walk everywhere, you're super aware of the type of people that are like all around you, and how busy it is and how hard it is to walk around. So those
Right.
are two main places for sure.
What do you think would be a strategy to? This is gonna be a hard question.
Yeah.
To preserve the unique heritage of Florence while still allowing for tourist access and enjoyment. How do we balance that? Right? How do we say, okay, we don't want as many of you to come,
Yeah.
but we still want you to be able to come.
Yeah,
Which is literally a double-edged sword.
it really is.
Because then you start to open the door of, okay, what type of people do I want coming to my country? And it's a slippery slope into very uncomfortable areas. You see where I'm going.
Yeah.
So what are your ideas on this?
Yeah.
Because these are things, especially someone going into international hospitality,
Yeah.
that you could very well be dealing with. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, whether you work for a
For
hotel or even whether you end up back over here working through, a tourism ministry or a ministry of culture or for a university.
Yeah.
These are things that you could potentially have to grapple with.
Yeah, 100%. It's a big thing to be aware of. It's so hard because I feel like, I mean, all of Florence especially is aware of the problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone's aware, and I mean, locals are starting to get really annoyed about it, which I'm not surprised. Like, people are starting to get annoyed. It's people are aware of the problem. They did instate the Airbnb thing about not being able to do new listings.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that was a big thing because no one had done that before. Like, that was not a option.
Right.
And
Well, you're essentially trying to tell people what to do with their own homes.
yeah.
Good
which-
luck.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't mean they can't do private rentals
Right,
or
sure.
rent it out to friends and family and stuff like that. But it's,
Have you? And actually,
Yeah.
you said something that made me just think about something else. So I'll come back to this for a second.
yeah, of course.
The residents are getting annoyed. Have you seen or heard of any anti-tourist violence, or pushback?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, you can, before into specific scenarios, like, you can tell if you go some places that are really local and authentic, and you, especially if you walk in, you're like on your phone or you're speaking really, really loudly or something, when you're like English American, you can tell they just like get annoyed, or you don't even try to say like hello in Italian, or you could tell it's a nuisance. So on one of the streets, kind of by where I'm living, there is actually a big like graffiti on the wall that says like "Stop Tourism," like "Stop Americans."
Really? Well, that's interesting,
I
especially because they're
noticed that.
targeting Americans.
Yeah, and I don't obviously know anything about the situation, but I will say, like, I walked past it on the way to class, and it did make me feel a little uncomfortable. I also, like, maybe 2 years back, I knew someone that got mugged here.
Really?
And I don't know if that was a specific. I don't know if that was because of that, but I do know that they were at a very, very American like club bar that, you know, mainly
Expats.
foreigners, mainly expats go to, not locals, and they were leaving that, and it happens. Yeah, those are the mainly the graffiti was recent though. Like, it was pretty. I didn't see it a few months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I was walking through Madrid and I saw a big bumper sticker, or like a sticker that was on a wall or a light post or something that said "Tourists go home." So that was, and I think it's the fact that they were targeting Americans kind of just. I know Americans have a bad reputation, and a lot of people I think see that as a stereotype. But I actually think it's actually more true than anything else.
Yeah.
Is that.
I think so too.
Pardon?
No, I think so too. It's hard. It's difficult because it's like, for someone like me, I mean, I'm fully aware that I'm not Italian. I'm very, very aware. It's not like, oh, my parents were Italian or something like that. I'm not. I'm very aware that I'm a visitor here. Like, I'm here long term, and I try to get incorporated with the culture and locals and everything like that, but it's not. Yeah, I'm not, but I also. You see these types of messages, and even if you're trying your best to kind of not disturb anything,
it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it makes you feel uncomfortable. It kind of makes you feel like, oh well, like that's me. It's just like walking.
There you go.
Yeah, it was just
a tour guide literally walking.
Yeah. Santa Croce is a big destination for these tours to go through.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've definitely. The last thing I was going to mention ask was, how do you think? What else do you think Florence or Tuscany can do to educate foreign tourists about this problem? Like, how would they go about doing that in a way that says, we want you to come to Florence, Tuscany, but we want you to be respectful. What other things? Because Florence is doing a lot within the city, and you know. But what do you think the municipal governments could do to try and extend beyond the city? Saying, okay, to other places, when you come here, this is what we want.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it is. I feel like, again, kind of within Italy, but affecting outwards. Maybe there could be some type of regulation or stricter regulations, or maybe more like checking, auditing of things like these tour guides and activities, and like trying to not say that they don't happen, but like ensure that they're run in a way that is not overwhelming. Maybe it's something that's limited, or there's like certain tour groups or tour companies that are. So I feel like that's one of the main things I think about, like certain tour groups, tour guides that are either limited per day, limited per location, or it's like they all have to do it in a certain way. maybe not take certain routes if it's through like a rural neighborhood where there's not, like, maybe having them stay in certain areas or take certain routes. I mean, Italy has gotten, from what I've heard, a bit stricter with this, but like just entry regulations and things like that, and for long-term stays, short-term stays, all things like that, making sure that those are, like, keep an eye on those for when they become out of hand, and there are so many people. I don't know if there's a way to control that, but it's...
I don't know. I just wanted one more thing I want to ask you.
Of course.
Next year, Americans traveling to the EU will have to get is it like a visa or a pre-authorization to come into the EU.
Yeah. So that's
Do you
the
think
type
that
of...
will help?
You know, I feel like it will, actually.
Really?
Because, you know, I like to say that if it were me and I knew this, I'm an over-planner. So I would 100%...
So is she.
I am so specific about that stuff. So I would look at all the guidelines and I would fill it out way in advance, and I would make sure I was all set. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there honestly are people that would be deterred by that, or maybe want to plan a last minute trip and don't get the chance to do that.
Right. I
mean, it's hard because it's not going to be like, oh, you're not going to plan, I'm not going to let you in. But I think it's you don't want to exclude people, but you kind of have to do something.
Right.
And I feel like it's not saying so and so can't come because of money or because of country you're from or anything like that, but it's making it a bit more purposeful in terms of right now. I mean, if I was in the US, I could book a flight for tomorrow and
Absolutely.
come and stay for a month.
Yeah.
Like,
right. You good?
It doesn't matter, and a lot of people are doing that. So I think it will cause a lot of frustrations, but I think it will help. I mean, I also think in terms of things like study abroad programs, it's really important for home universities to, you know, educate on the history and maybe local environments when people are coming to Florence or planning on studying abroad. It's obviously, it's not like you can make people who are coming to Italy, like adults, take a class or anything like that. But try to think if there's any way to be more aware, because they come and they're like, oh, we're going on a tour and they're showing us XYZ, and they don't like know any of the impact or any of like local culture and things like that, going back to how other countries can kind of have an impact on that tourism.
Right.